Hey everybody, today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 films of 2015. I don't see that many films. I mean, any movie that I do see, I usually review on here, but other than that, not many. So I don't have like a huge range of movies that I can pick from. I mean, there's still films that I want to see that either I was too lazy to go to theaters and see, or I just, it's not playing in my area yet, so that'll just have to wait till 2016. So I'm going to do this as I usually do. I never rank the films, so I'm just going to go in alphabetical order, and I'm also going to put a link for each review that I did for the films below. I'm going to start with The Forbidden Room, which was directed by Guy Maddin and Evan Johnson. This is just, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. It is an acid trip of a film. It's really wacky, very esoteric is probably a good word. There's no clear narrative, and it's twisted. It's definitely not going to be for everyone. If you're a major fan of like really avant-garde art, and if you're really kind of artsy, you'll probably like it. And I hate to say it in those terms because it does sound pretentious, but I mean, this is, to me, a work of art, something that is very unusual and something that was so creative and you just don't see very often. And I love how Maddin is taking all of these different genres and styles and images you've seen from films ranging from the silent era all the way through Technicolor and all of that, and he's taking all of these styles and he's blending them together in a way that is very kind of warped and twisted, and they blend together so well. And there's all these anecdotes that are meant to kind of peel back the layers of the narrative and really kind of showing what we see as an audience and what we're interested in entertainment and what's in our subconscious, what we really what does film really tap into? This is an extremely funny film. Honestly, I'd probably say this is one of the funniest films I've seen this entire year. There are a lot of Freudian jokes in there and lots of images that are meant to evoke the unconscious mind. It's something that I don't think I will forget for a very long time. So I definitely recommend it if you like things that are more creative and more like, off the beaten path. It's hard to find, but once it is available, yeah, I strongly recommend that you see it. Next is The Hateful Eight, directed by Quentin Tarantino. And this film is kind of similar to The Forbidden Room in that Tarantino uses a lot of the same ideas in terms of taking all of these different types of genres and mishmashing them together from the 20th century in terms of entertainment in order to kind of bring them together and peel back the layers and make them maybe more modern. Through that modernity, he's taking just very interesting and dominant issues in our culture today, and he's bringing them to the forefront in ways that you just don't see very often in mainstream Hollywood. Issues like violence, feminism, sexuality, politics, racism. And he does that with all of his films. That's his style. But to me, The Hateful Eight stood out from maybe a lot of the ones he's done in recent years because the issues felt more apparent in the story and they were more fluid. They were integrated into the story in a way that felt much more mature and focused. And it was one of the more hopeful films that I think Tarantino has ever made. It had more heart in it, and to me, it was one of the more human stories, maybe since Reservoir Dogs, and they do have a similar style in terms of just the ensemble of actors and the way it's shot. And it really does examine, I think, something that is very important to Tarantino beneath all of the, the controversy and the operatic visuals that he goes for. It's this obsession with the American dream and how we are willing to just claw our ways through bloody remains in order to get there. Next on the list is Mad Max Fury Road, and this is directed by George Miller. I am no action film aficionado. I mean, I do enjoy them certainly every once in a while, but you probably wouldn't want to go to me if you wanted like film trivia or something like that from those kinds of films. But from my point of view, this is one of the best action movies I have ever seen, and I think it has all the potential to be a classic. Scene for scene, to me, it's practically perfect. I love how it conveys these modern issues in terms of mainly femininity and also masculinity and how they are kind of clashing in an oppressive society, and they're able to make it so mainstream, yet it has the intelligence. You look at Max and Furiosa, and they are treated as equals. In pretty much any other action film, the two there would be so much sexual tension and there would be like a competitiveness between the two. But no, they are treated completely as equals, and the camera never once objectifies either of them. And I was just so happy to see that. And ever since then, every Hollywood movie I have seen since then that tends to be more in the action genre or just, popcorn blockbuster entertainment, every time I watch it, I can't help it but, look at it through the Mad Max filter. It's like, well, that's not a very intelligently written feminist character, or, stuff like that. It uses all of the great action elements you need, because I've complained that a lot of the action movies today suffer from overly complicated storylines, and this film is extremely simple. It wastes no time getting right to the point that it wants to get to, which is also very refreshing. And I love the creativity in terms of the way the world looks, just in terms of the vehicles and the character designs, the clothes that they wear, the world that they live in. The atmosphere is authentic, and it's a marvelous piece of work. I've seen it several times, and I will probably see it more. Next on the list is Phoenix, directed by Christian Petzold. And I know I say I don't rank the films, but honestly, in terms of all of the films on this list, this is probably my favorite one. It is a masterpiece. It's another film, like Mad Max, that is just so concise. There's just no fat to trim. Everything has its place, and it's perfectly timed, and all of it just shapes the story so beautifully. The acting, to me, is some of the best acting I have seen of the year, no question. And even the supporting characters, I mean, just even though there's very little dialogue, just there's so much beneath the surface and in what they say that, I mean, I look at them and I think, well, a whole film could be made about just this little supporting character that's only in a few scenes. It's just every character is so fleshed out and well designed. It's a perfect script that has so many layers. It really does show the complexity of love and the complexity of relationships, while also making a commentary on how we tend to romanticize our past lives. We tend to romanticize love so much to the point that we don't even recognize the present, and we don't recognize what's happening right now, even when it is practically slapping us in the face, because the mind is a very powerful thing. In order to convey that in a sort of metaphorical sense, it's using kind of old Hollywood, lots of film noir influences to show how idealism tends to seduce us. No one saw this film, and nobody watched my review for it, and that is a real shame to me. It is on Netflix, so if you can watch it, or if you have access to Netflix, which most people do, I highly recommend that you watch it. I just rewatched it recently, and it was far better than I remembered it, which is, the sign of a great film, when you can see a whole new layers and new ideas popping up that you didn't catch the first time. So yes, I am in love with this film. And last on the list is Spotlight, and this is directed by Todd McCarthy. This is a film that a lot of people kind of tend to forget. It does slip through the cracks because it is a very understated film. But to me, the understated quality of it is what makes it great. The minimalistic approach is what gives it that rawness. When you're portraying something that is very information-driven, like investigative journalism, you can't really glamorize anything, and because it becomes distracting. And with this film, they really don't do that. It allows you to get right to the focal point, the suspense and the meat of the story. To me, when I watch a film, I tend to ask myself 3 questions. And this is pretty much every film I see, whether it's, James Bond or The Forbidden Room. What is the director trying to say with this film? What am I getting out of it personally? How does it make me feel? And also, what is it trying to say about the world we live in now? And with a film like this that is a historical piece, you really have to question, how do these events translate to today? And I think that that's the key with this film. It's a very gripping film, but it's also making a commentary on the world that we live in. This took place in 2001, which was right kind of on the edge. We had a very newspaper-driven, magazine-driven world before, and we were just starting to get into the internet age, the information age. The way that these journalists work is very old school, and you're realizing that the world that they live in and the world that we live in now is changing dramatically. And it changes the way that we receive our information and the way people go about getting that information. But this film is very reminiscent of films like All the President's Men and just a lot of those 1970s films that were, just kind of stripped down, not glamorized at all. I think that this film would fit right in with a lot of those films, so that is a major compliment. So those are my favorite films of the year that I've seen. Check out these films if you have the means to do so, and I obviously recommend all of them. And let me know what you think, what some of your favorite films are, and that's all I got. So if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, the link is below, and of course you can also like my Facebook page as well, and the link below that. Catch you next time. The movie takes place post World War II, and it is about a oh, that was phlegmy. In terms of just Marion as a character, you can really feel how I don't see a lot of movies, and you probably figured that out. If I see a movie, I review it, but that's about it. So these are obviously just going to be the films that I saw, and I have a phone call. Hold on one second. Stay tuned.